Hey guys, welcome to Coffee Combos. We are at the Avalon Hotel today in Alpharetta, Georgia, and we have a special guest.
Yes, our special guest is a friend that I met at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta a few years ago. And it is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month for the month of September. And we decided to bring her on as a fellow mom and tell her story. So welcome, Anna.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So exciting. So I haven't really told Kail like the background story of how we met. So do you remember how we met?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You want me to
Yeah.
tell? Okay. So my son, Lake, was diagnosed with cancer in 2012. And we actually met Lindsie 3 years later in 2015. Her family came up to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta at Eggleston to bring Love Your Melon hats to all the kids up there. And we actually were in clinic that day. Lake was getting chemo and probably a blood transfusion. And
Yeah, that's what he was doing, a transfusion.
Getting blood, yeah. And so they came up there, and of course the nurses came by and asked, did we want to have a visitor? And of course he said yes, because he always wanted visitors. And then when they came in, he was especially excited because he saw pretty ladies. He was quite the ladies' man. And so they came and visited and gave us a Love Your Melon hat. And me and Lindsie just, kind of clicked and became friends on Instagram and just, through social media. And we kept up that way.
So I remember setting up the visit to Children's, and I was kind of hesitant to do it because I take everything so, to heart. So when I go and do those visits, I have to have a detox almost from it for 6 months before I can go back, because
It's so hard it pulls on your heartstrings.
Yeah, I get so emotionally invested in those kids, and then I want to follow their stories and see where they are, and then to see if something happens to one of them, it makes me feel devastated.
Of course, yeah.
So that's a hard thing. I love giving back and visiting the children because I know they love it so much. Mm-hmm. And I, talked to some nurses at Children's and told them, that's kind of how I felt, and it made me feel so sad to see why God, why them? And they said, but you don't understand how much of an impact you're making on these kids' lives, because they love to have visitors because this is their day to day, and this is what they deal with on a daily basis. And there was a little girl I've done 3 Love Your Melon trips to Children's, and did a tour with and met the dog at Children's. Mm-hmm. And a little girl that she's now in remission had just messaged me. It was very ironic last week that it was just our picture from where I visited. And she had said that it was the best day of her life, and she was so happy, and she just wanted to follow up and see how I was doing. And she's got all of her hair back now, so she looks completely different. And yeah, it's
so sweet.
It's so sweet.
How does that work? Do they just get visitors not randomly, or how do you set it up through the hospital? How does that work?
Well, so I went through I guess they have a marketing team there, I guess. That's how I got it set up, and through the giving program there is how you can come. If you give to Children's, then you can come and visit. And also I didn't know that families liked visitors because
they're going through so much.
They're going through so much that they might not want to talk. And so when I first went into the hospital and I start seeing the kids, on my first visit, I thought, wow, how am I even going to talk to these parents? Because I can't relate, and I don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. I don't know, how to act. I don't know what to do. I just know that I want to partner with Love Your Melon and help these kids, and just give them a bright spot of their day. And, some families weren't receptive to it, and they, didn't want visitors.
Okay.
And that could have been like a new diagnosis, you don't know.
Yeah.
And then you can't go into the bone marrow like for kids that
need a transplant.
you
can't
can't go in that unit because it has to be very like sterile. So no germs and
can't have a lot of people like in and out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's kind of heartbreaking for the family or the kids that would want to see somebody and they can't.
That was probably one of the hardest parts of our journey, because Lake had a bone marrow transplant and we were literally stuck in our room for like over a month, and I had a newborn too. And so it was like we couldn't leave, we couldn't have visitors. And he obviously is he was very friendly and very active and like wanted to like be around people. So that was like a huge struggle.
So Lake knew about Chris Lee Knows Best from WWE.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yeah. So he loved wrestling.
Yeah.
He loved wrestling, and we'd gone to see a wrestling match, and your dad was there. I can't remember who was with him.
I think my little brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so anyways, like he kind of put it like all together, like once, they came to visit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I first went in, he was like the first kid that I saw, because he was like right at the front whenever you come in, and he was sitting in the little chair getting his transfusion. And, you could tell that like he was looking, and I don't know if he thought like we were there to specifically see someone or what, but like he was just like, I just remember him looking around, and, again, this was the first time I'd ever been. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to do. And it was weird, the feeling that I got going up the elevator to go to the floor, because I just felt, like my heart was already breaking before
you were even up there.
Yeah, I was even there. So, for our listeners that don't know your story, can you kind of walk us through from his, initial diagnosis to just your journey?
Yeah. So Lake was diagnosed in 2012, and he was 5 years old. He was 2 weeks shy of his 6th birthday. And he'd always just been really healthy. And so it was a huge like surprise for us, but he was having random fevers, some ear infections that he'd never had before. And, so finally we figured out what was wrong with him, and it was cancer, which was, we definitely thought he was just like maybe anemic or just really didn't know what was going on. And so finally, pediatrician sent us to Children's, and he was diagnosed there. And he was diagnosed with AML, which is a form of leukemia, and it's a really aggressive form. And so that was like one of the main things that they told me was that, well, you really don't want him to have AML. And the next day they came in and they're like, he has AML. So we had to kind of...
So immediately your heart starts breaking.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will say, like, I went into complete, like, mom mode, and like like I just knew I had to like fight. I mean, I had to, so anyways, I just he went through chemo. He had 4 rounds of chemo, and he went into remission, and he did great. Everything was going well.
So it was he just did the chemo, the 4 rounds.
He just did chemo because they said he had like a pretty good genetic marker. They felt that he wouldn't need a bone marrow transplant. So we started with chemo. And so he did the 4 rounds of chemo, but we were in the hospital for like a month at a time, which that was really hard.
So each round was like a month?
Yes, that we had to be in the hospital because the chemo would like wipe out his immune system. And at the time, I had a 1.5-year-old. He had a little brother. And so that was really difficult, but I had a great family support system. They helped. It was, everything was good. And so at the end of that, so he was diagnosed in May, came to like October, he was done, and I found out I was pregnant. So we were like, I just really felt like this was God, like this rainbow after the storm, like he's now
dark
in remission.
And bright spot.
Yeah. So like everything was going great. He went back to school. Everything was back to normal. And then that next April, just at a routine checkup, because he would have to go monthly to have his blood checked, we found out he relapsed. And I was like a month away from giving birth. And I was just like, this is like the worst timing ever, and you just always, you want things on your timing, and you feel like, why would you do this? Like, this is just terrible timing. But we went with it, and at that point, they told us that he had to have a bone marrow transplant. So that's where things got real.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick break to talk about the designer jeans that fit you perfectly and feel amazing, and you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars. Ma and Bo have permanently changed the game with $200 designer jeans for half the price.
Introducing maandbo.com, where you can get designer jeans for half of what you pay somewhere else for 7 or J brand. They look incredible and are also super comfortable. You will want to live in them. These are luxury jeans for $100, and they're only available at maandbo.com.
Super flattering for your curves, stretch without stretching out, and they hug you in all the right places without being uncomfortable or restricting, and I know that I struggle with that. So these are perfect. Their washing and handcrafted dry finishing process is part of what makes every pair super unique and comfortable, and they're 100% unique. Their at-home try-on program ensures the perfect fit. They ship you 2 sizes, try on both, and then you keep the one that works best for you, and then you send back the other pair in the same box with a prepaid label.
I ordered the boyfriend jeans. I normally don't wear boyfriend jeans, but as I'm getting older, I feel the need to feel more relaxed, and I have been living in them. I normally just live in leggings, but it's a way to just make me look like more put together. And I love these jeans so much. So if you guys want to try them, again, these are $200 designer jeans for half the price. Plus their September savings event means that you will save 20% off on everything at maandbo.com/coffee.
That's MOTT and BOW.com/coffee. For 20% off everything. This is their best deal anywhere, but it's only for the month of September. So save 20% off during Ma and Bo's September savings event at maandbo.com/coffee.
They pretty much tell you up front that it's a very likely chance that he will pass away, like during transplant. And so, I mean, you know, he had to start chemo immediately to get into remission. And so at that time, then I had the baby. So I've like just given birth, and they're like telling me all these things, you know, that my child may not make it, which then added in the factor too that he's biracial. So it's really hard to find a bone marrow donor when you're biracial. Wow. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yep. And so that's why Be The Match is huge, and why if, any, you know, biracial, really they need any kind of ethnic diversity on the...
This might be an ignorant question. So if your child is biracial, do they need a biracial transplant?
Yes.
Because all my kids are biracial.
That has to be,
a biracial one. Oh, wow.
Yes.
So not just, you know, if my kid's Hispanic, it can't just be just Hispanic. It has to be...
Yeah.
Wow.
That's why. I mean, that's why it's so, like, people, you see all the Be The Match all the time, and that's why they encourage everyone to swab, because, I mean, you could be that one person that has, like, a really different race or ethnic background. You could be, you know, their match. So anyways, they did not find an actual person match. They found a cord blood match.
Oh,
so it's
wow.
also the same thing. If you have a baby and you are not going to bank their cord blood yourself, you can donate it, and it's all free. And they use that.
I didn't know you could donate it.
Yeah, they use stem cells from that, and so they found a cord blood. And that's all anonymous. Like when you donate that, like, 'cause, you know, if it's a person,
so you would never know the donor.
No, would never know. No, if it's a person, you can choose after a year after the transplant. You can choose if both of y'all want to meet one another, you can. But when it's a stem cell, that's like all anonymous. Like you have no idea. So I would never know who. But so he did the transplant in August of 2013, and he was such a rock star. Like he did so good. Like everything that they told me was going to go wrong and everything went right. Like he did so good. Like we weren't there for as long as they said we were going to be there. And so going back to when, you know, I was like, this timing is all wrong. And like looking back now, I know that God like gave me that baby for a reason, and that it all happened at that time because like she was such a bright spot. Like when he couldn't get out of bed because he was so sick, like he would get up to like, you know, hold her or see her smile. And so like, I totally look back on that now, and I'm like, I know now. Like, I know this is, like, why it happened that way. I didn't know it at the time, and that's why, you know, you a lot of times just have to trust God's timing and stuff. So anyways, he did great. He went through the transplant. He came home a lot sooner than we thought he would, but we couldn't do anything. Like we had to just be at home. He couldn't go to school. And so they kind of told us, you know, the year mark is like what you need to get to. If you can get to a year post-transplant, like we're probably in the good. So everything was going great, and he was doing really good. And in May of 2014, the day before his birthday, we went for his regular checkup, and they told me that it had come back. And that was probably harder than when they first told me he had cancer. And that's because by then I like knew so much more about what was probably going to happen. And I knew that since we'd already done a transplant, that there probably wasn't going to be much more that they could do for him. And by that time, he had become so mature because he'd hospital lived for so long, and he knew what was going on. And I think it's the first time that he ever really felt like he knew he was really sick, and he knew that it wasn't good. And, you know, that was probably the hardest part for me because, you know, that day when they came in and they took him out and they told me, and then they brought him back, and he saw me crying, and he said, "I'm going to die, aren't I?" Yeah. And so that was like the hardest part for me, was hearing him like say those words, because he was only, you know, he was about to be 8 years old, so he was only 7. So, you know, the doctors talked to us, and they kind of pretty much said what I knew, and that was that there was not really much more they felt that they could do for him. And so we, you know, looked at a lot of different options. Of course, you know, a lot of other hospitals like St. Jude and a lot of the hospitals you hear about offer trials and stuff that you can do. But they pretty much had told us that whatever we chose to do, if we chose to go to another hospital, that like these trials, I mean, there's no guarantee. So it's like, do we, you know, it was like the worst position as a mother to be in. Okay.
Because you don't want him to suffer anymore.
Right. Yes. So they're like, do you want quality or do you want quantity? You know what I mean? And it's like, just knowing Lake and his spirit and like all that he'd already been through, like I just wanted his quality of life to be good. You know, I didn't want to like go to another hospital and him die there, just me and him without my family, you know, without his family, his siblings. And so we just really prayed about it. And I never had a peace about any of these trials that were offered. And really there weren't that many, to be honest, anyways. And none of them were like a super great option. And our doctors here were not super excited about any of them. Like they just didn't feel like they would be a cure for him. It would be just to prolong his life, and probably not in a good way. Do you know what, you know?
Right.
So we decided to kind of do that because, I mean, at the time they were like, you know, you could take him home now and not do any more chemo, not do anything. And, you know, he's probably going to pass away in the next few months. Or you can, like, go do a trial somewhere, or you can stay here at your home hospital and we can do chemo and we can do some things to give him a little bit of life. And so
but what kind of life is that?
Well, that's what they felt like. He wouldn't be suffering. Like it would be outpatient chemo. He could still like go to school. Like he could still have, you know, somewhat of a life. We could go and do things, you know, whatever. And so that's what we ultimately decided, that we were going to maybe do another transplant if we could, you know, get him into remission and see where it went. And so we did that, and I don't know. I mean, now, like, looking back, I always like kind of question, did I do the right thing? But now looking back, at the time, they told me, well, even doing this, like, you probably have maybe 4 or 5 months with him, and he lived an entire year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, past that. And sometimes I feel like that was God saying, like, I'm giving you this with him, and it was like good quality time. Like, he wasn't like when he relapsed, he wasn't like super sick. He didn't have a lot of cancer at the time. So he went to camp that summer. He went to Camp Sunshine. We did his Make-A-Wish. We went to the beach. Like, he went back to school. He played baseball. Like, he lived like pretty
normal kid.
Yeah, sure. Like pretty normally. And like, if you didn't know, like, he didn't lose his hair that time. So like, if you didn't know, like, you wouldn't have even known probably that he was sick,
Okay, guys, let's take a quick second so we can tell you about the absolute easiest way to keep your health on track with practically no effort. I know that we've talked about this before on the podcast, but Care Of is a monthly subscription vitamin service made from effective quality ingredients tailored just to your needs.
Care Of has a fun online quiz that makes it easy to determine the vitamins and supplements that you might be in need of. So it's a really short quiz and asks you about your diet, your health goals, and the lifestyle, and uses your answers to create a personalized vitamin pack for you, only for you. The quiz only takes a few minutes to get your personalized recommendations. And when I did the quiz, it asked me questions like my sleep patterns, like what do I do during the day, stuff like that. And it really just helped me kind of even get an idea of what kind of life I do live, and the vitamins make sense to that.
It's very eye-opening whenever you're taking the quiz. And I felt like whenever I took it, it just helped me understand more so what I needed and what I was lacking, where you might not really think about that on a daily basis.
Right.
So your subscription box includes individually wrapped packets with your vitamins and supplements for easy grab and go. You'll receive a 30-day supply shipped right to your door. And it honestly saves me from having to make extra trips to the store, and it curbs my impulse buying, because I am very much an impulse buyer when I go on vitamin aisles and see things that I might need or I might not need, but I buy them anyway. I love Care Of because it's helpful, like I said, with the quiz. It just is eye-opening, lets you know what you need and what you might not need that you might be taking. And it's easy to travel, and it's honestly really easy to remember to do them because it takes no thought. It's just the pack. You take it every day, and that's it. So you can modify your subscription at any time, and the best part is it costs about 20% less compared to similar brands at local drug and health food stores. Care Of also has delicious, nutrient-packed, quick stick powders that can be added to your monthly delivery for an extra easy boost whenever you need it. I can't wait to try these.
Plus, they have pre- and postnatal supplements for all the moms out there. This is perfect because obviously you guys know Lindsie and I are moms. And for 25% off of your month of personalized Care Of vitamins, visit takecareof.com and enter promo code COFFEE. Let's get back to the show.
We kept doing that, and then about Christmas time is when we really kind of started to see, we knew eventually the cancer would start to like take over. Mm-hmm. And so I guess about Christmas time, he really started feeling worse and kind of, getting more sick. And in February of 2015, which I think y'all came, I feel like it was after this. Okay, so in February of 2015, he got really sick. He got an infection in his port, and he was getting blood, and it sent the infection like straight to his heart. And so he like coded on the floor. And so we thought we were going to lose him then. And so that he went to ICU, and so basically he went into septic shock. And so at that point, they looked at us and were like, his heart is not functioning properly. So a transplant is like off the table. Like he would never make it through a transplant. And so we I think y'all saw, he got out of the hospital, he got out of ICU, he came back home, everything was just kind of going. He was really sick. I mean, he had to be in a wheelchair. He couldn't really walk anymore.
I want to say when we came, it was still cool outside, but I want to say it was March.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it was like March, because I know when y'all came, he was sick. I mean, he looked bad, and because I know he was kind of quiet when y'all came.
He was, and I remember he just touched my heart so much that when I got home, I wanted to find you on social media because I was like,
so touched.
She's gonna lose her baby.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you knew then. Mm-hmm. I mean, you knew, when you saw him.
Mm-hmm. And then when you had posted that he passed, I mean, I couldn't imagine how you felt, because my whole day was like, how do I even, reach out to her and say, what would I even say?
Right. Yeah, so he passed away May the 1st of 2015, a few months after he had that. And we kind of knew when he got that, when he went into septic shock, that was kind of the beginning of the end. But, it's weird. For me personally, and every family is different and everybody handles things differently, but they started talking about hospice, and I did not want him to pass away at home. I felt more comfortable, personally, with him passing away at the hospital around the nurses that had loved him for 3 years, that knew they could manage his pain, or just, whatever. I didn't personally feel comfortable. And so we went into the hospital on a on a Monday, just as a regular clinic visit to get blood and platelets, and he had a fever. And so they said, well, we really think we need to just keep you here. And so...
do you think they knew?
No, I don't think anybody knew that this was about to happen. We knew that he was going to die. We did know that, but it happened very quickly and very sudden. And so we got admitted into the hospital, and but it's so strange because one of the nurse practitioners, she came in on that Wednesday, and we had this really great week at the hospital, which I know that sounds crazy, but even though he was really feeling bad and sick, he was all over the hospital, just wanted me to wheel him around and see everybody that he in the gift shop and all the different things. Sweet. And so we had this great week, and on Wednesday, Colleen, it was the nurse practitioner, and she came in and she said, I don't think that you should go home today. I think that you need to stay. She's like, you're going to be getting chemo anyways. And she said, but maybe later. And he said, I'm going home on Friday. And it was just so weird how he said it. He said, I'm going home on Friday. And so we were all kind of okay. And so he passed away that Friday. Yeah. And so it was just such a, I don't know, he just had this spirit about him. I felt like he knew, and he was not scared. He was so firm and his faith and stuff that he knew he was going to heaven. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I mean, even for me as an adult, I don't know about y'all, but when I think about dying, it's still scary. It's so scary. Even though I do feel like I'm going to heaven, it's still scary. And I just feel like he was so at peace with that. And he, so that Thursday night, he started having trouble breathing. And, so that we stayed up all night long, and he passed away really early in the morning, but he was trying to talk to me and tell me stuff, but he had labored breathing. Mm-hmm. And so the nurse was sitting there with us, and he told me something, and he hugged me, and I was like, what is he saying? And she was and I thought that's what he said, but the nurse was he just said, you're my best friend. Oh. Yeah. And I was oh my, I mean, I just knew. And I mean, he passed away 2 minutes later, and I just I don't know. He was my little best friend. He was my sidekick for 3 years. We were together all the time. He was my everything, I mean, I was his caregiver, and I always say as a mom, like, you shouldn't be your kid's best friend.
Yeah.
You know, you're not supposed to be.
Yeah,
exactly.
Course,
but it was like, this was a different, you know, situation. And so it was like, you know, that was like so meaningful, like for me. Now, if that were my teenage daughter, that'd be different. If she was saying that to me. But you know what, I mean, for the situation we'd been in, like, it was just, that was like such, now when I look back at it, because there's, I mean, still 3 years later, I mean, you know, I think about these things every single day, and I think about that moment all the time, but I feel like it's like what God gave me to like give me a peace for me to even be able to like function normally. Do you know what I mean?
I think like as a believer, my granddaddy passed away in ICU too, and he said something similar, and I think that they see like where they're going before they pass, because my granddaddy said he was going to the party, and like I asked him what party he was going to, and he was like, oh, it's where all these people are dancing and like singing, and he basically described heaven. And then he passed. So I think that they know, and I think maybe when they're in that situation and they know what's going to happen, that God gives them that peace, that they're going to be okay and they're going to a better place than where they are.
Yeah. And I think that he wanted me to, I think he was more worried about me.
Yeah.
And that's like, honestly, you talking about going to the children's hospital, if you ever see a child like on the AFLAC floor, really in the hospital in general at children's, but especially on the cancer floor, it's just different, and it will like change your life forever. And they have, most of them have a part about them that cares more about you and others than they do about themselves. And it's like that, sometimes that's harder for me to think about, you know what I mean? Just because I'm like, he was more concerned about me than he was about himself, and he could hardly breathe, but he wanted me to know that, you know, I was his best friend. And that's just how like so many of these children are. And that brings me to why I'm so passionate now about Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, just because, you know, I don't want to see families continue to go through what we went through.
So really quickly, I just want to ask if you guys tried Beta brand yoga pant dress pants yet. And if you haven't tried them yet, I don't know what you're waiting for, because they're seriously the most comfortable pants I've ever worn. And you should try them too. I know I have a friend that's an attorney, and she wears them to work. I wear them wherever because I feel like I am not really working a traditional job. So they just work for me no matter what.
You really aren't kidding. They're so comfortable and really super cute. They have straight leg, crop, and legging selections for all shapes and sizes, and it's really hard to choose from all of the options. But I went with the skinny black legging dress pants, and like I've said before, this is just a staple that I put in my suitcase because they really match any, you know, dresser. You can dress them down. You can, you know, throw on like a band t-shirt with it and make it look cute with Vans, or, you know, you can, whatever, like you can just make them look super cute anywhere that you go. So I love them. It's a good staple to have. So you guys should definitely try them if you haven't.
They're perfect when you want to be comfortable, but also still look great at work or wherever you're going. That's why I started wearing Beta Brand's dress pant yoga pants. Visit betabrand.com and use our code COFFEE to get 20% off yours. Millions of women agree these are the most comfortable pants you'll ever wear to work.
That's betabrand.com, betabrand.com, and use our code COFFEE to get 20% off your dress pant yoga pants. I know I was telling Kail that I see on your Instagram all the time that you're constantly giving back. And I don't know how, as a mother that's lost a child to something, how you could be so just like giving to other families that are also going through.
I would be so bitter, I feel like. but I've also never experienced it. So maybe that's like part of it at first.
Yeah.
And then you go through it and get through it.
Don't think that like I don't have my moments where I'm like pissed and angry. And I mean, grief is like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through like all the different stages of grief, but they happen like all the time and it's ongoing. And so there are times, I mean, like really, like I'm so ready for September to be over with. I mean, yes, I love bringing awareness and like doing things, but at the same time, my
brings
heart,
back all the memories.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, can this be done? You know? But I guess like for me personally, and it's different for everyone. Again, I always say that like everybody's journey is different and everybody handles grief different. Everybody handles like situations differently. But for me, when I'm able to like help someone else or like give back, it like makes me feel good. Like I no longer have my son, but like if I can like help someone else like in his like glory and memory, then it like helps me.
It's like therapeutic in a sense.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like he had such a purpose. And like, I feel like now it's kind of like my job to like, you know, keep his purpose like going. But there are times when I'm like,
angry.
Yeah. I mean, there's times when I'm like, why? Like, why did this happen? Like, why my child? But then you can't really say that because, like, why not? Like, why should it not? I mean, it can happen to anybody, and nobody's really should be, you know, like, no one's any better than anyone else to be exempt from it, you know?
Well, and I think that, you know, now that I have a child, that I guess it's selfish, but when I do my visits to children's, it's literally like 6 months. It's like a roller coaster, and I feel such anxiety. It's like if he falls and gets a scrape and it doesn't heal in 2 days, I'm like, oh my God.
We like think
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like that's my problem now. I mean, that's my issue now.
Because you have 2 other kids.
Yeah, and so, every time.
This might be ignorant too. I just don't know much about it. So is it genetic?
Well, they don't
because I know you have 2 more kids,
I
right?
do.
So
well, so Lake's biological father was not in the picture, and so my husband now, who I met when Lake was 2, was pretty much like his dad. So the doctors have said because they're not like full, like they had different fathers, that like the likelihood of like my other 2 children getting cancer is like very low. Because do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
like
the genetic makeup's different.
Yes, but I mean, I'm just going to say it. I mean, I know a lot of families that have had 2 children have cancer. It does happen, and that like terrifies me. And even though, and these were these were like, you know, biological siblings.
Sure.
But I mean, it happened to him. I mean, it could happen to my other kids too. And that's the thing, the whole genetic thing. And that's where like they don't really know. With children's cancer is so different than adult cancers. And most of the time, you know, when an older adult gets cancer, you know, sometimes, not all the time. Yes, there's factors.
Like
environmental, like just different things. But with children, that's not the case. I mean, there are children that are born with cancerous tumors. So they haven't even been exposed to like
anything
that we have.
No.
Right.
And so at this time, I mean, they feel like it's like something within like a cell. Like they feel like that Lake had cancer when he formed in my womb. I mean, you know, like he had that all the time, like
the whole time
until, you know, it
was found,
manifested. Yeah. Okay. And whatever brought it out, we don't know. But
see, that could be where like the environmental factor or something could play.
Like trigger it essentially.
Yes. But there's no. And that's why I come on, and that's why I talk to people, because like childhood cancer is like very underfunded. Like the National Cancer Institute only gives 4% of their funding to childhood cancer. And so, which makes no sense to me, because like our children are our future.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, why would you not put a focus, not to mention the fact that childhood cancer instances are increasing like every year, and that's what we don't know, and that's why we want to know these things, is why is it increasing? And to me, I do feel like some environmental factors are happening, not necessarily that the family's doing something, but like where you live, or do you live close to power, like, you know, things
city
like
or
that.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
And so those are things that we don't know, but it's happening. So I feel like the research really needs to be focused on how to treat these children, because The reason why Lake really died was because his heart failed. And his heart failed because of how much chemotherapy he got. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. And so, like, you'll see some, like, more targeted immunotherapy is, like, in the news a lot recently because it's, like, a new way to treat cancer. But it's for adults. And so that's what they're trying to now do a lot of research for children to figure out how can we target the cancer in a child's body without ruining the rest of its body with chemo. Because chemo, like...
It destroys pretty much your...
It destroys the good organs, and the bad.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, if you have this targeted therapy, it literally just attacks the cancer cells instead of attacking, like, your heart and, like, all your important organs. And so now that's sort of like what, you know, we really try, because with the type of cancer he had, AML, it's rare for children to get it. It's usually an old person's disease, which is crazy. And so, like, there's just, it's one of the most... underfunded cancers, or they just don't have a lot of, like,
information on it.
Yeah, like if you have the bone marrow transplant, and after that, if that doesn't work, they're like, well, that's it. There's nothing else we can do. And, like, I just don't feel like that's acceptable.
Yeah, it's not acceptable,
no, it's
especially
not.
with, like, science and how much money that is available if allotted correctly.
Right.
Then
there's no reason why there shouldn't be more research on it.
And I mean, it's just, like, that's, like, the worst thing that a parent can hear.
Yeah.
Is
like this is the end of the road.
Yeah.
Like, this is your last ditch effort, you know.
And that's why I say, like, when he was first diagnosed, like, you know, I was like, okay, we can do this.
We're gonna
like,
get
there's a
through it.
protocol. Like, they tell me this is what we need to do, and we're going to do it. And I was like, okay. Like, I got in, like, mama bear mode, and, like, you know, we did it. But then after they relapse and you've done all the things they've told you to do or done all the treatment that, you know, is there available, then it's like, oh, well, that didn't work, so, you know, there's nothing else we can do. And so that's why we started. So he had made a little friend in the hospital, and she had the same cancer, Mary Elizabeth. And we also met another family whose daughter was a little bit younger, Melissa. They both had AML, and they both passed away, too, from the same thing. And, you know, Lake had a pretty long battle with it, 3 years, which is a long time for AML. They only lived for, you know, 18 months to 12 months after diagnosis.
That's crazy.
And so we teamed up together, and I brought them with me. These are our cards for our fund. And so
sweet.
That's... you can kind of read their story, but all of the money that goes to our fund through Cure goes all to research.
So sweet.
Yeah, so that's sort of like our passion now, is just to try to, you know, bring awareness, raise money for this fund. And we've actually done really big things with it. Like, since we started it, we gave over $350,000 to a doctor in Seattle who's doing huge things for pediatric AML. So, you know, I just feel like that's the only, like, nothing can bring Lake back, but if I can, like, you know, make it easier for another family, or make it so another child doesn't have to go through this, then, like, that's what I want to do, you know.
Let's take a quick break and talk about clean teeth, one of my favorite topics.
That joke will never get old.
Never.
You guys know it. The truth is that most of us are brushing our teeth wrong and not for long enough, and we forget to change the brush on time, and that's because most brands focus on selling flashy gimmicks rather than better brushing. So Quip is not that way. What makes Quip so different?
For starters, Quip is an electric toothbrush that is a fraction of the cost of the bulkier brushes. While still packing just the right amount of vibrations to help clean your teeth, Quip's built-in timer helps you clean for the dentist recommended 2 minutes with guiding pulses to remind you when to switch sides. And I know that seems like something that would be like common sense, or you would be able to think about that time, but it just takes, again, the thinking out of it. When it vibrates, you move sides. Next, Quip subscription plans are for your health, not just convenience. They deliver new brush heads on a dentist-recommended schedule every 3 months for just $5. That is so cheap, and it's just great.
So, including free shipping worldwide, Quip also comes with a mount that suctions right to your mirror and unsticks to use for a cover for hygienic travel wherever you take your teeth. I literally will take the toothbrush off the mirror, and then I take the little holder thing and I stick it over as a cover, and then when I get to a hotel, I stick the toothbrush back to the mirror.
Wow, that's so efficient, I feel.
So, and finally, everyone loves Quip. They were on Oprah's O List, named one of Time's best inventions, and it's the first subscription electric toothbrush accepted by the American Dental Association. Plus, they're backed by a network of over 20,000 dentists and hygienists, and hundreds of thousands of happy brushers will use Quip every day.
Quip starts at just $25, and if you go to getquip.com/coffee right now, you'll get your first refill pack for free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/coffee, spelled GETQUIP.com/coffee. Okay, let's get back to the show. So, on a lighter note, I guess it's not really a lighter note, but I know that you did TLC, Say Yes to the Dress.
Yes.
How did that even come about?
Well,
because you got married after Lake
we
had
did,
passed.
yeah. So while Lake was going through cancer, we had a plan. We were engaged, but so we'd had this plan to get married, and then he relapsed, and we knew he had to have a transplant. So we were like, we can't get married. Like, we don't know how well he's going to do. Mm-hmm. So I really had just tossed the idea out the window. I'm like, we'll get married later.
Right.
But, when he passed away, he wanted us to get married so badly.
Oh.
And he had my last name, and he wanted Travis's last name so bad.
Oh, bless his heart.
Yeah, because his other siblings had Travis's last name, and it was just me and him were the only ones,
Mm-hmm.
But then he knew I was going to get Travis's last name, so he really wanted it. So when he passed away, we were what better way to honor him than to get married?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we knew we did not want to, we were both older, it was our first marriage, but we were older. We'd waited, and we didn't want to have a big wedding. So we were literally just going to have family, and I had ordered a wedding dress online. And I just didn't care. During all that, I didn't have time to think about a wedding dress. I was whatever. It just wasn't my priorities had changed.
Mm-hmm.
Your outlook on life changes. Yeah. I was it doesn't even matter. So I had this dress from online. We were going to get married out on a farm, no big deal. And so the Rally Foundation, which is another cancer organization here in Atlanta, Say Yes to the Dress had reached out to them and said, do y'all know any, moms of kids that have cancer that are getting married? And they gave them my name. And so I did not know, but I guess they got in touch. Well, they called me, and I did this Skype interview with them and just telling them my story. And they're like, oh, we'll get back to you. I never heard back from them. But I'd given them all my mom's info. So they got with my mom kind of behind my back. And so they showed up at my mom's house 2 days before my wedding. My parents live in Athens, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta.
Go Dogs.
Yes, go Dogs. And so we were getting married on a Friday evening, and I came into town on Wednesday just to start, getting ready for a wedding, and they were at my house.
Oh.
Yes. And they surprised me. So Lori and Monty had set my mom's living room up as a bridal boutique with all these dresses, and I tried on dresses, and they were so sweet. They're pick out any dress you want, everything. They gave me everything, veil, dress, jewelry. Yeah, and so I got my wedding dress 2 days before my wedding. So it was, honestly, it was so sweet. And I feel it was another, Lake totally did that. Number one, because he knows I hate to be on TV and being filmed. Because he would always, try to film me with his iPad and, whatnot. And I was like, stop filming me. So I know he thought that was funny that I ended up on TV,
biggest fear.
Yes, to be on TV. Because, y'all, I went to my mom's house and had on, like, no makeup.
Oh, of course. Your hair wasn't done.
My hair had not been washed in, like, 3 days. No makeup. I looked, like, seriously a hot mess. And I was like, y'all, can I put on makeup? And they're like, no, because we've already started filming. You know?
Yeah.
So they're like,
continuity.
So they wouldn't let me do anything. But anyway, so... But also, of course I was super excited to be getting married. But I mean, a part of me was like super sad because he wasn't there. And I feel like, because they came and, not just because I got some beautiful gown, but just the whole thing of it. It was like so special, and you
felt like he was like a part.
Yes, it like made the day better. And I'll show y'all when we get done. But I don't know if you've seen some of my wedding pictures. But so it was out.
I told Kail about.
Yeah, so it was out in this field, but there was an orb that followed me around in every single picture.
Stop.
Yeah. So I got home that Friday night after the wedding, and the photographer started like sending me. She's like, Anna. She's like, this is crazy. She's like, you have to...
Every single picture?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He moved from, like, over here. One time he was, like, right up my heart. Like, he was just, like, all over the pictures. And so, like, I don't know. I just feel like that whole thing was just
And she photoshopped him in a photo,
yes. And so then she took one picture of us, like me and my husband and my 2 kids, and put him in the picture. Like, and that photo, like, went viral. That was kind of crazy. I never thought that would happen. And that was a little crazy. But, I mean, it was just such a special, sweet picture. And not that it had never been done before, but I think just, like, I guess people knew my story, or, saw my story and how it was shared and just, like, really connected with it or whatever. And so, and she's had, like, so many people... I feel kind of bad for her. She got like inundated with people that were like, oh, I want you to do a picture like that for me. And it's kind of, I think it's like hard to do.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, to make it look like, I mean, because it looks
the picture
so good. Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably do it and it might not like look as well.
Yeah.
But like hers looked so good. And so that was just really neat. And those are like the ways where I feel like he's like shown up like in so many things.
All right, guys, let's take a quick minute to talk about how you can get super lush skin. Any guesses? You guys know it? That is BioClarity. BioClarity helps fight breakouts, soothes skin, minimize redness. It reduces pore size and even skin tone. That's something that I've definitely benefited from. You guys can get results with Garden Lush ingredients in as little as 2 weeks.
You know it. BioClarity is delivered straight to you, and it's an easy-to-use 3-step skincare routine that's 100% vegan, plus gluten and cruelty-free. BioClarity is a complete skincare with 2 different daily routines. I use the clear skin routine because you guys know I suffer from acne, and I get blemishes all along my jawline and my chin, so that's what I use.
And now they have masks, which I love, whether you want to try the Clarifying Glow Getter, which is one that I love, or the Hydrating Mask, which is something that I've been using because I've been super, super dry. Your skin will be looking its best. As I just said, the Hydrating Mask called the Glow Getter, it draws out any of the impurities and adds moisture to your skin for those of you who have dry skin, but it's also just a good like purifier for your skin. I just absolutely love it, and it just makes your skin feel smooth and gives you that glowy look. If you are ready to detox and rebalance, BioClarity products are loaded with soothing ingredients like Floralux from Chlorophyll. They're hydrating but also lightweight, and it's like green juice for your face.
Get started on a healthier habit with your skincare. Just go to bioclarity.com. Our listeners will get their first month for 50% off a routine, plus shipping is free. And it comes with a 100% risk-free money-back guarantee, and you need to enter our code COFFEE. That's bioclarity.com and enter our code COFFEE. Let's get back to it.
Well, so tell us about your other 2 kids.
So Trendon is my middle, and he is now 8 years old. And then Cambry is my littlest, and she's 5.
Yeah, and I want her.
Oh, she's so cute.
She's so
We
cute.
don't have girls, so we're always like, Who's having the next girl?
Oh my
And
gosh.
she's always wearing cute clothes.
She's a diva, though, y'all. Girls are so different. I was like a boy mom, too. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
She definitely runs the show, but she was Lake's baby. I mean, he was, like, obsessed with her. He called her baby girl. And he just loved her. But, you know, honestly, they're probably the only reason that I'm sitting here and functioning. Because if I didn't have them, I don't know. I probably, I think things might have like been a lot worse.
Taken
for
a different
me.
turn.
Yes. And you know, that's what's heartbreaking for me is I see other parents that have lost their only child, and they're like teens. So and not that a child could ever replace it. I mean, like they're not going to have any more kids. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like this was their only child, and like
Not that it makes it any better that they lost that child because they have others that replace it.
Right, but it's just the feeling of that's their only child, and now they don't have anything to keep them going, essentially. My kids keep me going. Of course, yours do, you know.
I just cannot fathom.
Right.
Like, I cannot fathom if, like, I didn't have those other two kids and then lost Lake the way we did. Yeah, like, what would... And I mean, I love Travis to death, but it's just a different.
They made you
it's a
get out of
different
bed.
love. It's a different, of course.
I still had to like care for them and be there for them because when he passed away, they were still little. I mean, Cambry wasn't even 2 years old yet, so I mean, I really had to be, you know, in it. And so they seriously have been like my saving grace, and they've really done amazing. I really try to like be super open about Lakes. Like, I mean, there's pictures of him all over our house. We look at pictures all the time. We look at videos. Like, I want them to remember him because like, I know she really can't remember him. So like, I really like show a lot of videos, and I just want her to know like how much he like truly loved her. Yeah. And Trendon too. Like, he loved Trendon. I mean, that was his brother, you know? And so like, and Trendon remembers a little bit more, and he talks about him, you know, sometimes, you know, he makes comments like, I really miss my brother, or we would be doing this together. And so, you know, I hurt for them too, you know, and that's part of like when you lose a child, like it's not just you, it's like your kids, like they've lost their sibling. And a lot of times I think people don't really think about that.
Like it gets overlooked a little bit.
Well, and I think too, like, I feel like we weren't put here on this earth to bury our kids. You know, like
so hard.
It's there
so
to bury
unnatural.
us. It's very unnatural to have to bury a child. So, I mean, I can't even honestly imagine what that would feel like. I'm paranoid about it just because of children's, and the more you read about childhood cancer and how
much more prevalent.
It's like more common, and it's rare. You know, like I knew this family that the child could not get over a cold and kept developing. You know, it would get over it for a day and then wake up the next day and, you know, have this horrible cold and fever. It was cancer.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what happened to us too.
And it's like, that should not be.
I feel like we're, as moms, like we're not trained, but we know what signs to look for when our kids get sick, right? So we know, okay, if they have a fever, you know, maybe they're teething, or maybe they have like a virus, but you never think, it's cancer.
That's like the last
there's no
thing.
signs, I feel like, because they vary and they're so different, and that's the last thing that I think that anyone would think of.
Well, and that's what I tell people all the time when I'm like, you know, trying to like bring awareness. So I'm like, you know, don't be me. Like, I was that person that like would see the St. Jude commercial and be like, oh, that's really sad, but like, I don't know anybody who has cancer.
Right.
Like what could I really do to help them? I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, I just, I was like, that'll never happen. You know, like that's so rare. I mean,
no, see, I'm the opposite than that then, because I hear it on Kicks or The Bull or, you know, whatever, and which are radio stations in Atlanta, for those of you who don't know. When I hear it, I change the channel because I'm paranoid.
Right.
It's anxiety. It makes me feel, you know, when I get the letters in the mail from St. Jude, makes me feel like it's like a bad omen. Like, okay, why am I getting this to my house? You know, like I don't know, like I'm overly paranoid, because the more you read about stuff and when you've been around these kids, you're like, please, God. And I pray, like, every single day I wait until Jackson goes to sleep and I go and pray over him. And I say, please keep him happy, safe, but mostly healthy.
Right.
You know, because you don't
know.
Yeah, you don't know.
But at least, I mean, you are, like, aware. Because, like I said, I mean, I was just so, like...
I'm with you. Like,
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, I don't know that would happen to me.
Yes,
It's so rare, but...
Yeah. But now I'm like you.
Yeah.
But I mean, before I just didn't really know like anything about it. And that was not on my radar when all this stuff was going on with Lake. And I mean, I never even imagined, like, cancer didn't even like enter my thoughts. Like, and when he told me that, like when the pediatrician said that, he's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but Lake has cancer. Like, he has leukemia. And I was like, what? I mean,
did I just hear you correctly?
Yeah, like I couldn't even like cry at the moment. Like I was like,
because you were in shock.
Yeah, I was like, are you serious? I was like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I'm serious, and it's very serious. Like, you need to go to the hospital right now. And then I was like, but I mean,
all the pieces.
Yes, but now, I mean, I'm more like you, and I'm, you know, I have that anxiety all the time. I mean, I try not to think about it, but I mean, we already have so much like mom anxiety without cancer. It's like this just added to it is like, it's so much. And that's why, you know, and I say that too, when I share stuff on my Facebook, and I'm like, this is not to add to like your mommy anxiety and stuff. It's just so that you know, and I told you this too, like, you have to be your child's advocate.
Yeah.
Like, if there's ever a time that you feel like that runny nose keeps coming back, or, you know, that random fever keeps coming, like, ask for the blood work. Like, be that, you know,
advocate for your child.
Yes, like, you have to be, because even some pediatricians, it's like not on their radar because it just doesn't like happen enough.
Right.
And so that's not the first thing they think of. And you can't blame them for that, but like, you have to
advocate for your child,
and not just with cancer, like with
everything.
And like within any kind of other illness or anything, like, you have to be that person because they don't have a voice. And
my pediatrician has basically told me to chill out because
you ask for everything.
Well, yeah, because I do ask for everything, and I want to know everything. You know, it's like when I go to routine, you know, doctor's appointments for the year, I'm like, okay, what percentages is he falling in? Is his head too small? Like, you know, I ask for everything. If he gets a rash, I'm like, do I really use the antibiotic ointment or try to like let it heal itself? And
do I get it tested again?
Yeah,
do I send it to the lab?
Yeah. Do I send it to the lab? Like what? Yeah. So I don't know. I think that just going to children's, I've always been bad with anxiety, but going to children's even more so.
Just
And
more aware.
I keep going. Yeah, more aware. But then yet I keep going because I know that there's kids there that, it brightens their day.
yeah, and I mean, just to like go back to that, like, you really don't understand like what that does. I mean, he wore that Love Your Melon hat, and it was like way too big for him.
Aww.
But he like wore that thing around the house and like
so
everywhere
sweet.
for so long. And he talked about y'all and looked at the picture and just was so about it. And I mean, I don't know, like, the littlest things for them, like for these kids in the hospital, like brighten their day. I mean, like the tiniest thing that you would never think, it like makes their day just because they're so stuck. You know, like they don't get to do anything.
The crazy thing is, though, is you would think with them having to have so much help and having to be dependent on physicians and their parents and family, you would think that it would make them regress and be more baby-like. But they're very advanced.
Yeah, that's why when you said that, it was like, okay, that makes sense because they're around doctors and nurses, so they have.
Yeah, but you would
they
think
hear a lot of things,
right? And so they learn.
Yeah,
right.
Like, and I don't know. I feel like it just like makes them like wiser, like beyond their years, and it just, I don't know. It just does something that makes them just.
Yeah, because when I've visited, it's like, I don't know, and sometimes I feel like some of the kids are like hard to the world. You know, sometimes it's hard, especially like the teenagers.
Oh, yes.
It's very hard to talk to them. Like, I tend to gravitate towards the babies and the little kids because you can tell the teenagers are just angry.
And rightfully so, I feel like.
Yes. I say that all the time. I'm like, I think all the time. I'm like, I feel like so blessed, like with Lake's age, just because he was like, you know, younger and he was like kind of naive to stuff because yes, teens, they are, you know, well, first of all, most of them are going to lose their hair and you know how like traumatic that is for an adult. Can you imagine as a teen, they're missing out on stuff. They're not having a normal life. Like,
They're way more aware.
Awful. Yes, they know, like, they're aware of, like, death. I mean, like, when Lake found out he had cancer, I mean, he was like, what's cancer? I mean, like, death was not in his head. But if you tell a teen that, that's what they equate cancer with, is dying, and an old person. And, like, so, I mean, yes, like, I feel like a lot of times, you know, people overlook, you know, like.
Certain cases, of course.
Yeah, just because, you know, they don't. But I'm with you, and there's a lot of nurses too that, you know, only some gravitate towards the teens, but others like can't handle it. Like
because it's a lot.
Yeah, it's so hard, like emotionally, for them. So I understand. I mean, I totally get that.
And you can tell, like when, you know, I had set up the visit and invited my family to go with me because one, I didn't want to go by myself, and two, I just felt like it was a good experience for everybody to go and kind of see, you know, it opens up your eyes to the real world and like things that are going on and parents are having to deal with and, you know, grandparents and families. And when we went into the room to like color with the kids and stuff, my siblings gravitated more towards the teenagers. And I think maybe because they could relate age-wise, maybe it was like easier for them. And then the little kids were all over me. So, you know, it's like different. I don't know. It was very hard to connect with them. So I wish there was like a better way to have help, you know, for like the older ones, because I feel like sometimes I know with my visit would be easier to overlook because they act like they don't want to talk to you, you know? So are there specific people that, you know, like come and talk to just the teenagers or?
They do try to do things, you know, at Eggleston, there's that voice, you know, and so a lot of celebrities come there.
I did an event there actually.
Did
too.
you?
I
okay.
did.
So, you know, I mean, I think a lot of times the teens gravitate towards stuff like that. And they do. And I will say this, a lot of times nurses, if they know like certain people are coming up and they know a child like really loves football and like a football player is coming, you know, like a teen, they know, oh, he loves the Falcons, like they're coming.
Right.
You know, they'll make sure that they see those people.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? And then, you know, with the little kids, like everybody just kind of goes around. There, a lot of times the little kids are just more like open. They just want to play.
Right.
Where a lot of times the teens, you know, they're sleeping or they're just like not up for like talking, you know, I mean, it's just harder.
And they're like more emotional because they've already gone through puberty and stuff, you know, a lot, or going through. So it's different. But I did an event at Eggleston. They had like the mini putt-putt and stuff and the basketball courts and it was like set up like a little fair and the kids got to come down and that was fun to be able to play games with them. Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
It's really fun.
Yeah, they do a carnival out in the garden sometimes. And I mean, they're really amazing. Like if you have to take your child anywhere, and especially if you're having to kind of live there, like I feel like Children's is like the place to be. Like after Lake passed away, sometimes I like miss the hospital. And I'd be like,
that was your home?
Yeah, I'd be like, Mom, that's so weird. Like, why do I miss the hospital? And she's like, well, one, it's because you were with Lake. But two, it's just like, I mean, that was like where I was familiar. And I mean, it's taken me, I mean, I'm like still working on it, but like I was really lost after he passed away. Like that was like what I did for 3 years was like be his caregiver. And I was so like, what do I do with my life? I
you had
like,
to refine your purpose.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I have 2 other kids. I know that. But, like, I had 2 other kids, and I took care of him. You know? And
so they were
like,
already a part of it. So now it's like
And so now, like, you know, what do I do? Like, what do I do with myself? And, I mean, I'm still, like, working on that. But I think doing the things that I'm trying to do, I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out, you know, what my life is going to look like. But I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate having you on. And for anybody who wants to follow Anna's story.
I had a prayer page for Lake, which was like so huge for us. I mean, it was so helpful, and I kept up with it like even after he passed away. But then it just got to be a lot. Like for me, I mean, I had a personal Facebook page, and y'all, before Lake was diagnosed, I had no social media at all, and everybody's like, you need to be able to keep people updated, like you've got to get a page. And so I made him a prayer page, and then I eventually caved and got my own Facebook page. But so I really don't keep up with that anymore. But we have a United for a Cure page.
Okay.
And so that is our fund through Cure, like I was talking about earlier. And so it's called United for a Cure, the Mary Elizabeth Melissa Lake Fund. And we actually have a Facebook page on there, and we share things that we're doing. If you're local, we share things, events and stuff that we're doing and ways you can give back or donate or whatever. And then I do have an Instagram account, but it's private. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry, guys. I know.
United for a Cure is probably the best one anyways.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is all that we have time for today. And if you guys have any questions, you can send us a direct message on at Coffee Convos Podcast, and we can get the questions over to Anna since her Instagram is private. We hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we will be back next week.
All right. See ya.
Thank you, guys.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Babes and Babies, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.